Why is it that hackers are getting inside so many highly protected and firewalled systems? How is this happening?
Well, I think there's two kinds of hackers that are being discussed here. Firstly, there's the regular criminal hacking, the guys who are out there looking for those credit cards that, as the president says, are for sale on websites around the world. And then there are the kind of hackers that the big CEOs he's talking to today are probably interested in, which is guys who are breaking into a network, looking for intellectual property, corporate documents, and other things they can use to really make a significant profit based on information they find. And I think the way these guys are getting in is very much they're taking their time, they're examining the system, they're probing for weaknesses, and they're spending a lot of time working out how to get into a system.
Well, certainly, Barry Ritholtz, I know you follow all things Washington. It does sound like, from an official level, they've stepped up the rhetoric on just how much of a threat this really is, comparing it almost to a terror threat.
Well, this is an important reversal. You know, we got way too obsessed with al-Qaeda and some of the more minor threats from the Middle East. This has been an ongoing situation. It's amazing we went through 3 presidential terms of absolute rampant thievery of U.S. secrets, both corporate and domestic. Look, it's not a surprise that the Chinese fighter jet looks so much like the F-22. They have essentially the blueprints and a lot of other stuff.
Technology.
Yeah, well, or the routers from
right.
you know, from Chinese companies look a lot like Cisco routers.
That's
it's
right.
also not an accident, right?
Well,
Yes.
Richard, why is it that it's taken so long for all this to come out into the forefront, and why are we now talking about it as opposed to 4 years ago?
I think that's an excellent question. If you talk to people within industry, they've known that this has been going on for a very long time. I think one of the things that really brings it out now is the attacks that are much more public, much less related to industrial and corporate espionage, but hacking celebrities' Twitter accounts or stealing people's credit card information. That makes an impact at a domestic level. People become aware of that. People are much more aware of cybersecurity issues. And then that general awareness grows into an awareness that there's actually much more going on under the surface as well. I think one of the things that certainly the president is talking about, particularly with his executive order, is about the importance of communication between victims to share information about what's going on, so other people can learn from your experience.
Richard, this is Barry Ritholtz. Isn't there an enormous difference between a little bit of behavioral hacking where you manage to figure out a celebrity's Twitter access by playing with birthdays and other family member names versus getting inside of the servers at a place like Intel or Boeing or the Department of Defense? Aren't these two very different forms of hacking?
Yes, they are very different. There are, in fact, several different forms of hacking. Obviously, getting a celebrity's Twitter account is kind of the digital equivalent of graffiti, whereas getting into a defense contractor and stealing plans for their latest jet fighter, very much more at the level of espionage and things we would have considered in the past to be spying. Now it just happens online because all the information is digitized. People aren't sneaking into factories with cameras taking photos of blueprints. They're just hacking in over the internet.
Well, Cory, I just wonder from your world what a partnership looks like between the private sector and the White House now that certainly the administration is going after the CEOs and engaging them.
Yeah, 12 meeting at the White House right now.
The White House is really showing that you can attack our infrastructure and you can attack our corporations, but when you attack Kim Kardashian, this is getting serious. No, I think
right. I'm curious because the First Lady was hacked yesterday. Now all of a sudden there's a meeting today. I'm sure that there are some who question that.
It's not an accident.
Right.
Look, it's not an accident. We're hearing about that now too. I think what's really important here is this cooperation aspect that was alluded to before. That when companies were hacked in the past, they kept a secret, and that Google was really the rare company that came out and said, "Hey, China's hacking our stuff, and that's not okay with us." Most companies that had the same experience wouldn't talk about that, and I think the president would be smart to get companies to say, talk about it publicly, share your best practices so we can have a more secure infrastructure in the corporate world.
And keep in mind, Google is a unique creature where almost every other major company in the United States either wants access to China's market or wants to use them as their back manufacturing. Google has already been there and said, hey, these guys don't have a level playing field. They're not letting us participate with anybody else.
Barry, we have the new Pope.